Hello, and welcome to the What Inspires You podcast. My name is Paul.
And I'm Brandon. Join us as we rediscover wonder through inspiring conversation. So here we are. Yeah, another episode. Hey, thanks for watching, people. Yeah, welcome. Welcome back.
Indeed. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just maybe I'll just jump right into it.
Jump right in, man.
Before we
just lay it down.
throw
it out there.
Take any more tangents.
Right.
So my idea is utopias.
Utopias.
Very inspiring.
What?
And not dystopian at all.
Yes, that's right.
There's no way they can go wrong. I've actually been writing like a little short story.
Trilogy?
No.
About a young adult? Is there a love triangle in it as well?
Was this Maze Runner?
No, I don't know. It's just like so many dystopian trilogies and somebody in high school and they save the world and it's their destiny and whatever.
Yeah, anyway, so it's supposed to be perfect looking society and then they go rebel and fix it somehow.
Like the Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent.
Yeah, didn't those all come out within like 5 years of each other?
They all came out pretty close.
That's impressive.
I think even like The Giver, and there was... of course.
That was an older book, right?
That was an older book, but the movie came out recently.
All the studios were like, this is hot now. Let's get it. Let's find it. Interesting. Yeah, no, anyway. This is... a
utopia where nothing goes wrong?
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's how it should be.
Right?
That's the definition of a utopia.
Yeah. But basically... I don't know, maybe it's all the chaos in the world or something, but I've always just had ideas for like good practices that I see out in the world. Mm-hmm. And when they're like done, bring the world into a better place. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily like a utopia, like everything, just nothing goes wrong ever, which I think is completely impossible in this lifetime. But it's more of like, this is a place of all these good practices happening consistently, you know? So it's like even things like reconciliation for when something does go wrong. It's like you're admitting that something went wrong, but you're also working to fix it. So like that's a good practice as part of this utopia that I'm writing. And so I've just kind of been compiling all these different things that I see. And so just writing it has been very therapeutic of like, and a challenge to me because when you write, and I'm not saying this is good writing or anything that I'm doing. It's more just for my own sake, and maybe it's interesting to others at some point. But you know, when writing, you often like need the antagonist, right? It's always like, you know, what's your driving force? Like, what keeps things going? What makes things
create conflict?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm trying to like, I've always been fascinated by writing in a non-conflict style, and it does get boring fast. Like a lot of times you're like, and everything was good. And it's like, okay, cool. Like,
how was your day today? Good. And he meant it.
Yeah. And so it's like, where does the, you know, where's the, like, is there a meteor coming? Like what's, you know, we gotta, you know, move things forward somehow.
Yeah.
But, so maybe I'll start my own genre or something where it's like, how do we write in a way where it's like just good things happen and still make it interesting. That's been my challenge. So for me, I'm writing it almost in the style of like a historical technical document in some sense of like documenting like how things like kept progressing well. Yeah. And so like, and challenges overcome, right? So, you know, potential problems arise and then like this is how it was worked through. So basically the story is like in the science fiction, people colonize a world essentially, and then over time they like kind of turn it into this Garden of Eden scenario. And so yeah, I've just kind of gone over things that in my head look like really wise things to implement. Is there anything that you would change if you could just about the world, like maybe one major or minor thing that would make the world closer to this paradise or a utopia that you could think of? Ending war.
Ending war.
Getting rid of the Middle East.
It's a good one. Getting rid of the Middle East.
Not in that way. Like just, I don't know, like not to single out any one country, but just getting rid of problem spots or something. And not through nuking it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like if it's hard because I feel like all the problems of the world are dependent on people. And really,
if we just got rid of the people, it'd be fine.
Well, and see, that's how a lot of movies are. There's a lot of stories that's like the people are the problem. Get rid of the people,
Yeah.
But it's like, really, we just need people to change,
Yeah.
So it's like, what's one thing that would just make people change?
Well, the interesting thing is, like, you see all these things happening on a small scale, right? Like a lot of these good things of people being caring or, making the world inherently a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like on a small scale, but it seems hard to scale that up to like a large level to some extent.
Yeah. Maybe if everybody just owned cats,
Yeah.
I think that would change everyone deep down inside. Make for a better society.
Just mandatory.
It's mandatory.
Just get a stress cat.
Where's your cat friend?
I'm allergic.
I'm allergic to cat. Doesn't matter.
Bring your EpiPen. Go get a cat.
Go get one. No dogs anymore. Only cats. Yeah, it would probably be like ending war. I mean, because even diseases or natural catastrophes, at least people could come together and treat each other well in the midst of those. But war is just people straight up not treating each other well,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that would be the ideal thing to get rid of, that would progress humanity for, in a very healthy utopian direction if we could do that,
Yeah.
I think that would be ideal.
You'd conserve a lot more resources too.
Yeah.
Well, dude, even if you just took the military budget and was able to spend that on something else.
Yeah.
Like that'd be insane.
Solving homelessness or the national debt or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. All kinds of crazy things like that.
That'd actually be kind of interesting to see. Like, I mean, it's kind of a self-defeating question because the deficit is part of government or military spending.
Yeah.
But if you just like stop military spending for how many years, like how many years stopping military spending would it take to pay off like the national debt,
Yeah.
It's probably not many.
I don't know, man.
I've seen like breakdowns, like percentages or whatever. And I think military spending is like upwards of like 20% plus.
Wow. Really?
So
that's big.
Yeah. It's huge.
That's crazy.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with utopian societies is even within history, there's been so many people who've sought to create or have just dreamed about having a utopian society.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tried to achieve it in a bunch of different ways, communism or other things like that. But it's just interesting how I feel like innately in humanity, everybody wants a utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're almost... I feel like there's almost a drive that like there should be a utopia that exists.
Yeah.
If only there was one hidden in the Amazon.
No one just settles for what they have.
Yeah. Nobody's
People are like, it's good enough.
All the horrible things of humanity and society. Like, this is just the way it should be. It's like, no, everybody looks at that and is like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And it should be different.
Yeah.
And I think that just speaks to how God designed humanity, that like, I didn't make you for all of this disaster. Like, I put it inside of you that you wouldn't want this disaster. You would know that it's wrong,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah.
I was actually even watching a podcast the other day, which I actually highly recommend to everyone, where it's called, what was it called? The name of the podcast was God is a Man of War.
Oh, wow. That sounds intense.
So, right?
Okay.
It's referencing the verse in Exodus, and it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek name a little bit, but it has to do with like violence in the Old Testament, right?
Okay.
And like all this, cleansing and stuff going on and whatever. But, one of the ideas that I'm going to incorporate into my writings is the idea of the Jubilee. And it was like, I don't know, I've always, read about it, I know about it, but it's like thinking about it in context of just modern day. I'm like, what a amazing system for like a flawed world. Basically, you have, sorry, my brain's going like 5 different directions, but you have this principle that basically, every 50 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
49 years and then 50 is the Jubilee. And then,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was thinking like 7 times 7. I'm like, yeah, that's in there somewhere. Yeah. But yeah, so every 50 years, you basically get to like reset things and, go back to your land and all this kind of stuff. And like, I think it just that alone solves a lot of the problems that people are worried about today, where it's like, oh, you have this institutional, being poor, or you have generational wealth that never gets like broken or, changed or whatever. You have like all these things that are just so entrenched for so long that it's like hard to break out of, generational poverty, or you get your family gets saddled with debt from medical bills and whatever. And then the children are still paying off, bills when they're, super old. And, just the idea of like forgiving debts at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's like allowing kind of the slate to be wiped clean and people to like, then the better person comes along and is able to make better choices and better financial choices. And like they get a chance to get their head above the water and kind of make something of themselves again.
I think also it cuts down the empire building.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, I'm going to build my Rockefeller empire, And it's like, well, you're going to build it for 50 years.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to give a lot of stuff back and it's going to be kind of different, So it's like, I feel like you have enough ambition that you want to provide and take care of your family, but you're not going to be so ambitious that you're trying to take stuff from everybody else or trying to like take over the country or the world because it's all going to go away eventually.
Exactly.
So it makes that sort of like futility of overachievement. It makes that like more real for people. And so I think you're going to be more content with what you have.
Yeah.
And so therefore there's more to share with other people.
Yeah. You're more focused on the things that really matter instead of building like a hoard to some extent, and there'll always be people who are more savvy in business and all that kind of stuff who will, rise to the top. That's just inevitable, I think. But
it does. I don't know what the answer is to this, and maybe but with Jubilees, like, what if your family land was like some really crappy piece of land? It was like, well, your family land owns the side of that cliff and that desert. God bless you. And it's like, we don't want this land. Like, we want to get rid of it. So it's like every 50 years, you're like buying new land. And it's like, okay, we can leave our like crappy land for 50 years and like live on some other person's land. But then in the end of 50 years, you have to give it back. Like, is there any way you could like permanently change your family land? I feel like there had to be some way that was like, we're signing over this land for purchase like permanently. Like, we don't want our little desert plot anymore.
Yeah. Maybe when they were assigning it, like people got to pick it by lot or something, or like they just didn't give out unusable land or something.
Yeah, maybe all the land was great. Maybe there was no crappy land. Maybe nobody was like, oh, my land sucks and I have to have it for like the next thousands of years. Like, dang it, I can't go back. Like,
I guess if you're assigning land at a certain point, you'd have to like not tell people that this was like a permanent deal, so you didn't like influence their decision and give them FOMO of
right.
But I didn't get the waterfall property.
I didn't get the waterfall. That guy got gold. I just got black goo. Just wait.
Just you wait. Yeah.
It'll be good eventually when you're dead.
Yeah, right. It's a bunch of rocks that make me sick with radiation.
That's right.
It's like, but yeah. So that was an interesting concept that I was like, I really want to explore more and kind of work into some of my writings, because it's like, I think a lot of times with Utopia, the idea becomes that you staple everything down and you like try to like tack everything into place to make sure like nothing goes awry, and that it's very like almost sterile feeling, which is why you see like a lot of these dystopian things become dystopian, is because they're so control oriented to maintain peace and order, like because of human, just wildness and unpredictability and whatever. So it's like, to account for that, the system goes more into control rather than being like accounting for it and saying, okay, we know the tendencies to go every which way. Let's find a way to bring it back to the center without being overly controlling. And that Jubilee idea is a fundamental idea to that.
Yeah. I know, it's kind of, I feel like it's the opposite of that purge idea. It's like there's the one concept of like you need to control everything and keep it perfect all the time. And then there's this other idea that's like you should just let everything go totally wild, and you're going to like reset humanity by like there's no law. Everyone can just do whatever they want, like kill whoever and steal things and do whatever you want, and then it'll like reset humanity.
Yeah.
But then Jubilee is like, well, we're going to reset humanity not through control, but kind of like ordered rewilding. Like we need people to like kind of let go and become free again. And we need to like let go of the micromanaging and the high structure, but we're going to do that letting go process in a way that's still orderly and not just like unleashing chaos, you know?
Well, that's why like I've been fascinated with the like just a week, because like creation in a week and 6 days and the seventh day is rest is like such a, I don't think people give that pattern enough credit, where it's like it's 6 days of order and building and 1 day of release. Like Jubilee is, 49 years of building up and order and structure, and the 50th is the release.
Yeah.
So it's like the proportional work to just not chaos, but the undoing of order is very lopsided towards making order or like maintaining order. Whereas like I think people are like, well, I want maybe 50-50 order and chaos, and it's like those just battle against each other and you never progress or whatever.
I mean, honestly, I think people don't do restoring enough. Actually, I think people are more like work and order Monday through Friday night complete chaos, Saturday Sunday recovery from Friday night's chaos. I think that's how people are more like, well, maybe if you're
people,
if you're in like a city and you're going wild or something. Otherwise, other people are maybe doing like, work 5 days a week and then 2 days of like, let's just play.
Yeah.
And then your play is like not even restorative because you're exhausted.
Yeah.
You're like doing something too hardcore. And then, weekend warrior thing. And then you come back Monday and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted from the weekend.
Yeah. You were only ordering. You never, even your play wasn't like completely, I want to use the word frivolous, where it's like, which is, I think we live in a time where it's like you have to pack every experience full. Everything has to be super meaningful. And like frivolity is almost the opposite of that, right? It's like it has to be meaningless, which I don't think people like the idea of, that you would do something meaningless. But I think that is a key towards refreshing order.
Yeah, you have to have like no agenda in order to allow yourself to fully relax.
Yeah, you have to be like dumb. You have to be like whatever, not like in a like go harm yourself way through binge drinking or whatever, but you have to be like, I don't know. Yeah, because I noticed that it's like even on my days off, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go read this book that's super heady, that's that's gonna advance my thinking or something, and it's like, oh man, that's like totally the wrong instinct.
Yeah,
but
I know, like a lot of times on Sundays, I think to myself, well, gosh, I could get a lot of things done today, and it's like, yeah, but it's not what I'm supposed to be doing today.
Yeah.
Like I've got to, whatever the things are that I think I need to do, the agendas, the to-do list.
Yeah.
Today's not the day for
That's
those.
why God made video games, was for Sunday. I'm just kidding.
That's why God made binge-worthy TV shows on Netflix for Sundays.
Just kidding.
I don't know.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I take it all back.
That's why God made hammocks.
Yeah, right.
Just go lie down. Cat naps. Thinking about utopias, you kind of made me think of Studio Ghibli a little bit, because I feel like one of the things in Studio Ghibli films is that the conflict of the film is not always front and center. Like there are some films where the conflict is right in your face. There's conflict. Every scene, every second, there's conflict. But in Studio Ghibli, there's a lot of movies where you just see characters, you just kind of see them interacting with the world, things are happening. There's not really like, there's one great conflict and we must destroy the Death Star. It's like, oh, we're lost. Oh, I found the thing again. Oh, there's like a toy. We're going to go to this place. Oh, this is my friend. Meet my friend. Oh, I'm hungry. It's time to eat food. And it's like, oh, it's like really interesting and enjoyable and relaxing to watch.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's just kind of like people interacting with their world around them. Like, I don't know, whatever,
That's a good point.
It's just kind of some interesting world building. Some conflicts maybe came and went a little bit. There were some little things that happened. And okay, now the story's over. Just told like a tale out of somebody's life or something.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think that kind of comes to because, and this is how I always view the world, and I always would hope I run into people who feel the same, but it's like, dude, the world is enough of a conflict for like anybody, right? Like it's pretty dangerous. Like you always need food or else you die.
Right.
Like you can get, if you stay out in the sun too long, you get burned.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty, like it's not, I mean, it's obviously hospitable and we can live here, but it's like there's a lot we have to do to like kind of maintain, thriving.
Yeah.
And so it's like your conflict is kind of built into your life.
Like we've just created so much structure that it's easy for us to mitigate all of the danger of life. So it makes our lives very comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you took away all that structure, buildings, cars, the systems, the ambulance doesn't come when you hit 911. I mean, if you took away all those safeguards that we put in place over years and years, it's like, life's really brutal. You're just naked in the woods.
I mean, it's still brutal. People still like, commit suicide or, have all these issues. And it's like, there's your example of conflict. And it's like, I think, and that's why it's like, I find it really sad when people have conflict with each other because it's like, we already have the conflict. It's like, why not just work together towards like the things that really are plaguing us? It's like, we already have enough stuff to worry about. Like, don't add to the problems. Like, I don't know. Yeah. That always irks me, but
yeah,
and sometimes we do it unintentionally or whatever, it's like we add to other people's problems and whatever, but it always makes me sad when it happens. Yeah. Like in blatant ways.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you about one more of my Utopia things and we can move on if we need to.
Okay, sure.
So this is just my own like weird pet peeve thing. And that so like I said, this is kind of a training manual.
Okay.
Not actually. I mean, but basically I love the idea of everybody or a few people owning everything. And if you, I'm just kidding. You'll own nothing and be happy. No, I love the idea of like certain people owning a ton of stuff.
Okay.
And just being very generous.
Oh, okay.
So like, I mean, the library kind of works on this principle, right? Mm-hmm. It's like they get to just hold all the books. They get to maintain them, keep them, organize them, label them. And then you just go borrow it whenever you want.
Yeah.
Like what a great system.
Yeah.
Like most people don't want to own like hordes of stuff. I mean, they might because they have security issues or whatever the other, insecurities are. But like, I think just on general, like people wouldn't want to go like get a whole extra storage unit to like keep their boat and their RV and their, their summer toys and their snowblower and their whatever things, they need. It's like, I just look at the storage units around here and it's like they're dime a dozen, and people just like fill up a house full of stuff, then go fill up a storage unit full of stuff and then go get like rental spaces for like their different toys and equipment. Right. Yeah. And then they use each one of those things, maybe like 0.001% of their year. Yeah. And it's like, dang, what an inefficient system. That's, I mean, obviously like consumerism has a little bit to do with that and trying to push stuff on people and giving them financing for things that they couldn't otherwise buy. But rant aside.
I know we've got whole TV shows on hoarding, storage facilities. It's all about excess stuff. I mean, potentially people could be moving or they need to store it, but like a lot of times it's just like, I got too much stuff. What do I do?
That's a common thing you hear all the time. And it just overwhelms people and whatever. Yeah. But then there's certain people that love like cataloging items, collecting items or whatever. And it's like, man, what a great system if like those people, you just had each neighborhood had, maybe a neighborhood was only 10 houses, but like one out of those 10 people just like had all the tools for like the auto shop and, they had all this stuff and you just go, like you used to do in the old days, like go borrow a tool from your neighbor. Yeah. It's like, that's great. Not only does it, so now you get the thing you need and maybe you have to wait a day for it. So what? Like, it's not the end of the world. Yeah. People might act like it is.
I think, that requires knowing your neighbors and having enough relationship with them that you can ask for stuff and they'll be willing to give it, Oh, for sure. I think that's the struggle is nobody knows their neighbors today, Yeah.
And and it's not like a accepted system, like if people just knew that was expected that, this was one person's going to do that, because it's like, if you think about like, any organization, it's like people have roles in that organization. So what you can expect from the other members. Right. But now it's free for all.
Yeah, now it's like, well, if you need to fix something, like, don't come ask me. Go buy it on Amazon. Fix your own problem, Like, I'm not going to give you my tools. I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
What if you break it? What if you break my tool? What if you don't give it back?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like now the trust is lost. It's not just like, oh, you're Billy from down the street. Sure, Billy. Here, why don't I come over and help you with your project?
And people do that in, more close-knit and rural communities. People are all the time. That Titus video I showed you with that guy in Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, he lets certain people borrow his horse. Yeah. It's like, that's a great thing. You let people borrow your car.
People in Kentucky do.
Yeah. Yeah, So, so just more efficient use of items. And I think we can afford to, go buy it on Amazon because we have so much excess.
Yeah.
Which I think, again, in a utopia situation, you'd have a ton of excess as well because, like, things just naturally well, not naturally, but there's more. If you're doing things sustainably, like, you'll produce more than you'll spend.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like we have such a high capacity to produce equipment or food or whatever in life.
Yeah.
It's just that we produce a massive amount and a few people hoard it all. And if we had a system where those people were either willing to share it all or people were just willing to have some kind of library for a lot of different items, cars or tools or whatever it is in life, then we wouldn't need to produce as much. And we could focus energies on other things.
Yeah. You could either take those excesses and put them into other areas, or you could, just be more efficient and not have to produce as much.
Yeah. Like everybody doesn't need their own jackhammer.
Yeah.
If there's one dude in the neighborhood who has it and is willing to let everyone borrow it when they need it.
Yeah. And just when I worked at the tool, like the, big tool rental place in Priest River, it's like we had a pretty modestly sized, operation, and we were serving like 6,000 people, So it's like, and, we would have days where, maybe something's booked out for 2 or 3 days, and that's just the most popular stuff. You could adjust the rates however you need to. But for a lot of that stuff, like, we send out dryers for carpets like once every month, So it's like so that's even for those 6,000 people, this item's only getting used once a month, So there's just things like that where, as a community, you could definitely come together and really like not have to go overboard on, getting thousands of things.
Yeah.
Or each person having their own separate, item for whatever. So especially like stuff like, I don't know, you could like a flour mill or something. It's like you could just easily share that or something. But yeah.
Sharing, not having war.
Yeah.
No conflicts.
Yeah.
No teenage love triangles. Nah, that's got to happen. Nah, that's not real. That's part of the utopia. There's no way to have a utopia without that.
It wouldn't be perfect without it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be perfect for the rest of us watching.
Yeah. That only happens in the local community centers.
Oh man,
viewing stations.
Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah, that's my.
There's your thing.
Yeah, I might have to do a part 2 on this at some point.
Perfect world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
enjoy it while it lasts, people.
Yeah, just don't turn on the news and the illusion will be maintained.
Yeah, don't watch the real world. Don't watch what everybody else is doing. I've got a question to ask you.
As you do.
Yes,
I need to start asking you questions. I mean to every time, and then I never do.
I always feel like it's kind of a weird cliffhanger thing where I'm going to like throw you way out here and then be like, now here's a rope. Come on back.
Reel me back.
Like,
yeah. I like it.
I always think it's kind of funny.
It's like a Freudian test to see where my brain goes.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's a dark room and there's a knife. What are you thinking about? It's like,
my inner, deepest, darkest secrets are coming out. I cut the birthday cake.
Yeah, that's right. Oh man. Okay, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Let's say that you own a coffee shop and you hire this one barista, and the barista is so good at making coffee. It doesn't matter if the coffee grounds are like good coffee grounds. You give them like the crappiest coffee grounds, but there's some magic in how they're processing it. Everything's the perfect timing. There's just something, all the art, they do artistic things on the coffee. I don't know, whatever it is, It's
Putting
like
caramel in all the right
magic.
spots.
Yeah, just however it works, it's like magic coffee. And everyone who comes to that coffee shop loves it. They're like, this is the best coffee in the
We're
world.
talking about Mexican
Your
cartels.
coffee. No, it's not about drugs.
Okay.
Your coffee is so good. But for you as the employer, your employee just only does good coffee. Otherwise, they show up to their shifts late. Maybe they show up drunk. Actually, yeah, let's go with that. They show up drunk a lot, drunken master.
Okay.
They're rude, no good customer service interactions, super unpleasant to be around. Just like dresses weird, just every possible flaw you could have, except they make great coffee. How much are you willing to go out of your way to like accommodate this person? Like, is it worth it? Or do you just be like, screw you, we'll just have normal coffee?
Just yeah. If it's just normal coffee, I think it depends for what it is. Like if it's just coffee, I would say, yeah, probably just normal coffee's fine. If it's something where it's like you're making medical instruments or, maybe you're engineering a part on a spacecraft or something, like I'm going to look for that excellence more, which I think parallels real life a little bit more, where you have all these brilliant engineer people that are a little difficult to work with.
Yeah. I'm putting it more in that category. I'm putting it more in like, this is the magic coffee that like
It keeps humanity
that
going.
inspires people.
Inspires people. Then yeah, I'm more. Well, me personally, no, I wouldn't work. I don't like working with difficult people.
You specifically have to work with this super difficult, just everything about them is like obnoxious and you can't stand it.
Yeah, for me personally,
But you know that their coffee's going to save the world.
Yeah, ditch them. Get rid of them. Get out of here.
Okay, I got another question for you. Have you ever been in a scenario where you knew that you were right when everyone else was wrong? Maybe it's like you're carpooling and everyone says, oh, you go down this street. This is how you get to our destination. And you're like, no, I know it's not down that street. You have to go down the other street. And you are like 100% confident and you are willing to just like adamantly tell people it's wrong. You have to go the other way. I absolutely know.
It's starting to sound like a biblical story.
It's not. It's not a biblical story. It's not.
Let's see. Do I?
Maybe even like, let's say it's like poker and you're like, I know I have this hand. Oh man, I know I got it. I know. I just need everyone to like put in a ton of money because I know I've got it. I'm going to get the money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like that certainty that you have. You know that you're right. And either nobody else knows that you're right or everyone thinks you're wrong. But like you are 100% sold that like I have to go the other direction from everyone else. And I'm trying to convince them to go this other direction, you know?
Yeah. That's why I'm writing my Utopia book.
It's not
that level of arrogance.
Like I wouldn't say it's and see that's an interesting thing is that if you're truly right, is it arrogance or are you just right? You know, it's like I think that when you're right and everyone else disagrees with you, if you truly are right and they're wrong and you're confident in you being right, are you actually arrogant? Or are you just saying the truth and they don't like it because they're wrong?
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, well, you went against the majority, so we think you're arrogant because you're like so confident. I don't know. You know, it's interesting.
I have a lot less confidence that because I think the truth is starting to, for me personally, there's a lot of aspects that go into truth, right? It's like can I say like, this piece of furniture is there. It's like, okay, is it there in what sense? Right. Are all the atoms arranged in a certain way? Absolutely. Yeah. Like as far as I know, like whatever, but, like, is it there? And I don't know. You can get metaphysical with it, basically, or especially it gets very clouded when you go into social interactions or whatever. So the fragment of truth I'm even picking up on, I don't even know if it's always relevant either.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The more you learn about people, the more you have to learn the subjective nature of people's perspectives. And even the more I learn about science, the more science I learn, the less science I'm confident about. It's like, it's always like this. Well,
Except when it's not.
Except when it's not. And it can be unpredictable as to whether or not it is or isn't. And
Yeah.
there are certain circumstances where it's happened in other ways. And
Extenuating factors and
it was idiopathic. We had no idea why it was like that. So, yeah, I would say that's a high probability.
exactly, yeah.
you know,
That's what you boil down to at the end of the day.
Like-
It's like you're like, I'm 99% sure on just about it, on most things.
Most
or
case
whatever.
studies have shown it this way, but
Yeah,
there was the one
exactly.
when it didn't, and that was weird. It's like,
Yeah.
the more there's like less certainty with things. I totally get that. Well, I would like to talk about a person in history who was both incredibly confident that they were right on something, which they ended up actually being right on that thing, and they were extremely difficult to work with, and nobody liked them. But it's a good thing that they did work with them.
Is it Nikola Tesla?
No, I want to talk about Winston Churchill.
Oh gosh.
I just recently rewatched that movie Darkest Hour,
Okay.
which is a fantastic movie, and I totally recommend watching it. And it was played by Gary Oldman. I think that he won a Oscar for his best performance in there. But it's just so good, and it portrays how basically everybody in British government thought that Hitler was cool. They were like, yeah, he's not going to have war against Poland. He's just putting his troops up against the border, but like they're all chill. And we've all kind of met with him, and we've talked to Hitler and had communications with him, and like he's fine, nothing to worry about. And then he breaks out war, and the one guy who was like, no, that dude's evil. He's pure evil, and we should all just fight him and like have war to the death with him, was Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
And so because he so adamantly spoke out about that, people were like, oh, all of our political leaders were stupid except this guy. We should make him prime minister. So they make him prime minister, and he's like, great, I'm prime minister now. Like, I need to fight against Hitler. But everybody's like, no. We should have peace. We should just have peace with Hitler. And he's like, dude, you don't have peace with a guy like Hitler. Like either we beat him or he beats us. But it's like death, or it's like death or victory. There's no other way, and one of his famous things that he used to say was never surrender. We'll never surrender, victory till the end. And it was like, that was his mindset. It was so absolute. It was so narrow. There's one option. And it was like, I'm not talking peace. I'm not doing other things. There's no negotiations.
He was the man for the time.
Yeah. And it's like, for that time, that's what we needed, because he recognized the truth. He saw the one situation that was like, I can see the Hitler and evil, and I will not give him like a second chance or like benefit of the doubt.
Where did he get this strong intuition from?
Well, so it's interesting. I think that, and I don't know this history exactly, but I think that a lot of the people who had confidence in Hitler were people who met Hitler in person. And I think that meeting Hitler in person blinded them to the actions of Hitler.
Because he was like charismatic.
I think he wooed them. I think he like made them think, oh no, I'm not going to do any of those things, And no, just a schnitzel. Just a schnitzel. Because I'm tied to you. No. We no kill people. And I think that Winston Churchill, he never met Hitler in person. He didn't want to meet Hitler in person. And I think that he just looked at the facts of his actions and listened to his speeches. It was like, listen to what he's saying. Look at what he's doing politically. Objectively, these are the signs of a tyrant. So why aren't we looking at him like a tyrant? And other people were like, but I met him, and he was such a gentleman. He was such a nice guy. He would never go killing tons of people. A guy like that wouldn't do that thing. And I was like, no, he's a psychopath. And I think Winston had that more objective view. I think he like took his emotions out of it because he never met him,
He probably didn't even have emotions.
Maybe
right?
he didn't have emotions. I don't even know. Yeah. The way that they portrayed him in the film was that he was like a very difficult, matter-of-fact, rude, just like the worst person. HR was having a field day. I mean, just like you never want to work for this person. Tweeting mean things. just like this person is terrible, And like you would never want that person in peacetime, but it was like exactly the right person at exactly the right moment of history, because he saw the truth and went right when everybody else believed a lie and went left. And he was the one guy who was like willing to call it out and not back down, like stand up against opposition, even within his own political world, where people were like, we are going to oust you as prime minister. Surrender is the only option. We have to go with peace talks. And he was like, if we surrender now, we're dead forever. Like, we will never surrender. We're never going to do that, you know? And so I just think it's so interesting how he was like the absolute exact right person. And it was just because he was so dogged about this truth and knowing what that was and sticking to it. But literally everything else about him was like terrible. It was like, he's the worst person to have as prime minister. Doesn't even have a really good track record. His personality is tailored. Oh, he was constantly drunk. He was like drinking nonstop. It was like, he was known for just drinking and smoking. And there's such a great scene in the movie when his wife is like, honey, we're broke. And he said, I shall be conservative. I will only smoke 4 cigars a day. And it was like, what? And I think he was joking, and he was like drunk at the time, and he was and it was just like, oh my gosh, dude, you are just like a crazy spender on all your like pleasantries of life or whatever, you know, just like so ridiculous, you know.
Jeez.
And so I think it was inspiring, not even necessarily that he was like an inspiring person. I mean, I do think it's inspiring that he stood up against so much opposition. Like, not only so much opposition in world history, like, whoa, there is a giant conquering army destroying Europe that is coming for you. What are you going to do about it? But also the opposition of his own country, like, my own political colleagues are rising up against me and trying to get rid of me so that they can take over. And it's like so much opposition, and you just did not back down. And I think that is really inspiring. But I also think it's really inspiring, and I think it almost seems, I don't even know how to say it. It just seems like providence, like God's hand, that just the exact right person with just the one quality needed and nothing else that was really great in qualifying this person.
Maybe the alcohol was that gave him the courage
I don't know.
Bullheadedness to be able to.
Maybe the drinking made him like not think very clearly about like, oh wait, did they just say that I should do the other thing? I wasn't paying attention. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Or you know, like, it's just they're doubling down, you know, because it's just like, you don't like it. It reduces social inhibition. So it's like, yeah, everyone's telling me I'm stupid, but I don't care. Like, I'm drunk.
Yeah, I don't know. It just
like, kind of right.
It's kind of that like Samson scenario.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is the person that we need to kill the Philistines, but he's not really that great of a guy.
Yeah, you don't want him like mentoring your kid or something.
Yeah, you don't really want this guy hanging out with the fam or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And
that's actually a really good analogy. Yeah. There are certain figures like that where it's like, even despite all their flaws, or maybe because of their flaws, like they end up being, because like Samson wouldn't have ended up in the temple if he hadn't like been seduced, you know?
Yeah.
And like chained there. So it's like all these weird, I don't know. Yeah. Series of events that's like your faults get used.
Yeah.
In spite of you in some sense.
Yeah. It's like the faults kind of allowed the person to do what was needed to be done, you know, in a weird way.
Yeah. And that's not to like condone the faults, but like at the same time, you know, again, it's like, you know, you'd think of stubbornness, like 99% of the time, stubbornness and lack of cooperation doesn't actually merit you good results, right?
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't tell anybody to like, as part of their, you know, I don't know, marriage counseling or something. It's like, you just got to dig your heels in, and even if people tell you wrong, just go for it. You know? It's like, that's not good advice.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting because I think of myself, like if I was in a situation where I was judging over a country and I had all these experienced leaders and you know, generals and political people and all these, and they were all like, you should really think about this. Like, it might be a good idea to surrender. It's like, gosh, I really should think about that. Like, wow, maybe that's, man, everybody thinks that's it. Man, these guys are so much smarter than me.
I'm
like,
second guessing myself. I have imposter syndrome.
Maybe I really should do that. You know, it's like, I would be like trying to think like, what are the good, wise traits of a good leader? Listen to the people around you and be patient to listen to people. But it's like, you do that with Winston Churchill and he's just like blithering slithering at you through his cigar, like, how dare you even say such a thing? Like, we will never surrender. You know, he's like screaming at you and slamming things on, like having a little like temper tantrum because you even like mentioned to like surrender.
The trigger word, yeah,
And
you get triggered.
you know, you don't put your head in the tiger's mouth, like, you idiot. You know, he's just like can't stand it. And it's like, it doesn't seem like good leadership, but that's kind of the attitude they needed apparently. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know a ton about his past. Was he like, did he grow up in a political environment, or was he?
Oh gosh, yeah. Let's see. His dad was, I don't know if his dad was a political leader, but I think his dad was a speaker of some kind, and he had been in the military, I think, in World War One, and I believe he had been a commander in World War One, and there was some controversy over some political decisions he had made that a lot of people looked poorly on, as though that was like really bad judgment and some calls he made. And he always claimed that he made the right call, but then some other generals basically sabotaged his like action. And so, yeah, he was like, I did the right thing with what I knew at the time, but other people didn't do their part, and so then they messed it up. So the whole operation fell apart, and it looked bad on me, but it wasn't me. And so I don't, who knows?
Yeah,
the truth there.
So who was like supporting him politically as he was kind of going,
I think the
down this
people.
path?
I think the people supported him, but I don't think he knew that. And that's one of the pivotal moments in Winston Churchill's life, was that he was surrounded by political figures who were all very much against him and trying to get rid of him. But the people really liked what he was doing, and they agreed with him in the idea that they shouldn't surrender to Hitler. And the pivotal moment came when Parliament was basically going to try to like vote him out and get rid of him. And he goes, and there's this famous part of his life, and they portray this in the movie, and it's a pretty well-known thing with Winston Churchill, where he goes and rides the underground, the metro. And he had never done something like that before, so it was kind of a new thing. And he basically like runs away from his bodyguards, goes into the underground, and rides in the metro train and asks a bunch of people, just random people in the metro, what should we do? I could surrender to Hitler right now, or I couldn't. And the people in the metro were adamant, saying, we're never going to surrender to Hitler. Like, we will die before we surrender to that guy. Like, don't you dare surrender to him. And it was then that he realized, oh my gosh, this is the will of the people, and I am aligned with the will of the people. It's just these political folks who are against me, and they don't want to do that. But I and the people are in agreement. And then he came back with renewed confidence, knowing that he was enacting the will of the people, and he stood firm in Parliament after that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Huh. That's kind of an interesting move, like, of humility.
Yeah.
To do that, and like
the way,
or maybe not.
I don't know if it was something he thought of on his own or more circumstantial.
Did he have a good wife?
He did have a good wife, but in the movie, at least, it was the king, because the king didn't really like Winston Churchill. And the king and Winston Churchill didn't really get along. Although it's interesting, because if you ever watched that movie King's Speech, the guy who's in King's Speech, that king, George the Fourth, King George the Fourth, I can't remember, maybe the Sixth, and he is the king in that movie. And then World War II starts, and then in Darkest Hour, you see Winston Churchill with the king, and that's the same king character. But the king does not like Winston Churchill just as a person. He's like, you're so disgusting. Like, I can't stand you. I'm afraid of you, and you're just like, you're horrible. And then he gets to a point where the king's like, actually, I support you. I think that you are making the right decision. And even though I really don't like you, I want you to know that I support your decisions you're making.
Isn't like the English political system so weird? Like, you have a king and a prime minister.
You have a king, and it's like technically the king is the highest power, but they don't really make any decisions. Yeah, it's like really weird. Yeah. And then that was when, in the movie at least, the king recommends that Winston go. He said, go to the people. Go see what the people want. Like, the people will probably direct you, even in subtle ways. They may not even realize it, but the people will show you like the right thing to do. And he says, okay. And so that's when he like sneaks away. He skips out on a war cabinet meeting, and he goes amongst the people and like asks them and hears their voice. And then it like totally inspires him. And he's like, yes, I am doing the right thing, And it's a big change for him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Had he shown kind of any signs of self-doubt before that?
Yeah, he did, because he realized that he had some doubts because he saw that his party was going to kick him out of office. And so he was like, I either surrender, or if I don't surrender, then they're going to kick me out, and then they're going to put somebody else in place who's going to surrender anyway. So he felt a little defeated, because it was like, no matter what, these other political people are going to like win over me. And he felt defeated, like there was no way to not surrender, because either he was going to do it or somebody else was going to do it. So he's like, I really don't want to, but I don't know how to escape my dilemma, you know?
So definitely, yeah, it seems like it all again ties around the no surrender thing. Like he just felt that in his soul.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to let him go.
Yeah.
Or let him rest.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just interesting, you know, I think it's a fascinating story, a fascinating moment in history. You know, it's like, he's really not a great person. He just did the right thing at the right time, you know, maybe in the wrong way. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know exactly.
Or maybe that's the only way it could have happened.
It was the only way it could have been done. I have no idea. I don't know. It's interesting to think about. And it just makes me think of, I think it also kind of makes me think of, when you look at Hebrews chapter 11, where you find the hall of faith, and you find all these characters who are really not that great of people, but they did like the right thing in the right moment, at least once or twice in their life
when it counted.
when it counted. And then it was attributed as faith for them, you know?
Yeah.
And it just kind of inspires me how I feel like, you know, as humanity, like we're not really that great of people, you know?
Sure, yeah.
But I think that God can either guide us, direct us, help us. And when the time is right, it's like God can use you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, even in spite of all like the mistakes and like terrible personality or whatever it is in your life, you know?
Well, it's almost like you have to follow your conscience though. Like, because it's like, I think when you flip on your conscience or turn on it, like that's when things go sour. But it's like when you stick with that conviction that's been given to you, that's when it's like faith or like attributed to you.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like if he had felt like don't surrender, and then he goes and surrenders or whatever, you know, and like because it was easier or whatever, it's at any point, like that's probably like the turning point for a soul in some sense.
Yeah, he would have doubted his own instinctual reactions to the person of Hitler.
Yeah.
He would have, you know, his own ideas of like surrender is the worst possible idea. Hitler will not give us good terms. We shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been going against his own interpretation of history and the times. And yeah, it probably would have like broken his soul in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, would have compromised on himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So that like those, you know, those pivotal moments when you just like know something's right, it's like those are the do or die moments where you have, like kind of double down, I think. And that kind of keeps you, I think if you can recognize those moments, then you can start to compromise and work, smooth out wrinkles in other areas. But when then it comes to those, then those are the areas where you do need to double down. And even if people are, you know, opposed to you or whatever, it's like recognizing those situations as the time to really like dig in and resist.
Yeah, because it's like that type of personality would not have been good in peacetime.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
well, ideally a well-adjusted person could have both those things, right?
Yeah. Like, but I mean, I don't think Winston Churchill, I don't know if he would have been able to recognize the appropriate scenarios to be that intense in peacetime. Like he might have brought that intensity to a peacetime when it's like, well, you really should actually listen to all those counselor people now. Like that was a good time to maybe.
It's like I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to show them.
I want to cut down all the trees on this island. No, we shouldn't do that. Yeah, but a squirrel pooped on me the other day. I'm going to kill them all. It's like,
dude, there's too many parallels to nowadays. I just like as you're talking about all these character traits. Yeah. It's like, oh no, I know somebody like that.
Yeah, there's some modern people that maybe have similar portrayals, you know.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to make a parallel to those people because I don't know if it's the exact same type of situation, you know. Yeah. But yeah, it's just that interesting, just that fascinating movement of like the right person, the right inspiration in their mind, just the right moment. And if it didn't all line up in that way, it would have been disastrous, like at any other time, history, scenario really wouldn't have worked out very well, I don't think, you know?
I always wonder though, like, that's like in some ways, yeah, there's the person for the time, but like, are those people just always around? And then just depending on the scenario, like they're not needed. And so they just like fly under the radar and like kind of discarded in some sense,
Yeah. I've thought about that too. Like, do desperate situations make heroes appear, or are people always heroic? They just don't have the opportunity to show their heroism until there's a desperate situation.
Yeah. It's like, because, you see those traits and it's like, born in like a different circumstance, he could have just been like a belligerent drunk person on the streets.
Totally. Exactly.
England and just,
yeah,
I don't know, like getting in fights or doing whatever,
Yeah.
And it's like, but because he was born to a certain, parent at a certain time and all this thing, it's like, there's probably a lot of people with similar personalities just spread out. But
see, what I'm thinking about is maybe he is innately as a person, like really not that great of a guy. Maybe he really is like a drunkard, very unkind, unfriendly person, but because he knew what the right thing to do was in a desperate situation, it brought out heroic good qualities out of him. Like he rose to the challenge because there was a challenge.
Yeah.
Versus if there had been no challenge, he may not have had it in himself to rise up above his faults as a person,
yeah, for
Whereas,
sure.
like, I think there are some people who like choose the discipline of life to rise above their faults as a like normal standard of life.
Sure.
And I think that that's a large part of Christian values and Christian discipline is like, you have faults as a human, rise above those and try to be a better human at all times. But I think there are some people where they have a lot of faults and they only really try to rise above those when they get challenged in a certain way in life. That's like,
totally,
because there's such a desperate situation, I'm going to rise to the best.
It's like when people have like unplanned pregnancies or whatever. It's like, some people really rise to the occasion and like,
they're like, I'm going to be a great parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
totally.
Like kind of like,
totally. It's a good example.
Changes their life for the better.
Yeah.
Even though it's like technically a bad, like, unfortunate thing in some sense.
Yeah. It's like, it would have been better to have a baby in a different scenario, but you made the best with what you could,
Yeah.
You did a great job.
And it changes your life for the better. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adversity is definitely a refining fire.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Next time you want to do some day drinking right out of bed in the morning, smoke cigars.
And then make an important political decision.
And then call people on the phone and tell them to send all their military forces somewhere. Just think of Winston Churchill.
Oh, what a life. Jeez.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that if you were a soldier and was like, this came from the top. Winston Churchill commanded everyone to go to this town. He's already had like 2 bottles of champagne. And he just called us and told us that you got to go over there and conquer that town. Like, I really hope that was a good decision. I don't know.
Jeez, yeah.
No, I don't know if he was
yeah.
that directly. He was sending orders to his generals and they were making hopefully
like,
good decisions.
They have to like, what is it, edit, basically what he's saying. It's like, he said that, but we're going to modify that a little bit and do this instead.
Yeah. I don't know if it was exactly like how Winston Churchill.
We took all the slurs out of it and cleaned up the telegram a little bit. And it's...
I don't know if he was... I actually don't know if he was in office for the entirety of the war. I think
he ended a little bit before.
I think he did end before the war ended. I think somebody else came into office,
Yeah.
So it's like, even within the time frame of the war, he was really only needed for this one significant, like the very beginning of the war, really.
Yeah.
I think it was like 1940 or 1940. I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was 1942. I don't even know. No, I think it was earlier, because they attacked Poland and then they started coming west and they were in France and all the forces were at Dunkirk. Whenever Dunkirk was happening, which I can't remember that exact date off the top of my head, but that was earlier in the war.
Yeah, because America got involved in 42, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That was
Pearl
December
Harbor.
7th, 1942. So Dunkirk would have happened before that. So yeah, I think it was like a year before that even. So yeah, it might have been 41 or 40 or something like that.
Yeah. Crazy time in the world.
Yeah. Alrighty. There it is, people. Utopia and Winston Churchill.
That's great.
May they never mix.
They don't belong together. All right. See ya.